The President. Good morning. We continue with the motion debate on the motion moved by Mr. Ronick Chen. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. President, I would like to thank Mr. Ronick Chen for moving the motion and the other two members for moving the amendments. Now, we want to reduce carbon emission in response to climate change. So low carbon and green development has become the mainstream direction for development. And so the green economy is created. There's emphasis on economic development going hand in hand with environmental protection, so there needs to be a balance. And then on the ESG management concept is becoming more and more popular. On the governance of corporation and non-financial performance, there is also there's now a demand for green environmental protection. Green awareness is also taking root in our day-to-day life. Some corporations then engage in greenwashing. This is probably inevitable. By greenwashing, that means that in terms of products or services, they just add the green label indiscriminately, saying that it's earth-friendly, and then they exaggerate the environmental benefits of their products or services, but that's not in line with the facts, and then consumers suffer loss as a result. But now the government, now we rely on the Trade Descriptions Ordinance, CAP 362 only, for regulating false claims, and that's actually not able to keep up with the latest developments. We want to promote the healthy and sustainable development of our economy. So the government needs to take a multi-pronged approach. First of all, the government should consider regulating greenwashing. There should be laws and regulations to that effect. There needs to be a proper framework to regulate greenwashing. We need to protect investors, consumers, and other businesses and their legitimate interests. And then we also have to expand or develop certification services. Now, I was once the chairman of the HKQAA, and I'm now the honorary chairman. Now, the HKQAA was established to ensure, that is the Hong Kong Quality Assurance Agency. It's to ensure that there are certain standards met by different services and so on. Now, we have the ESG Connect scheme under HKQAA, and we encourage businesses to use various ESG solutions. There's also the carbon neutrality certification scheme, and there are 3 grades, and businesses could have regard to their progress in achieving carbon neutrality and apply for this certification. And then there was also green finance certification verification services to meet the needs of different bond issuers and loan borrowers. The government should also promote other certification services to reduce greenwashing. And I have suggested on many occasions to the administration that we have to support the development of GBA. Hong Kong should become a regional certification center. This is actually an advantage industry in Hong Kong. The government should promote more collaboration with other cities in GBA. We should build a partnership platform. We should introduce more international standards, such as ESG standards, and there should be clear, clean, green auditing standards. There should also be various professional attesting and certification services that are aligned with the international standards. In his amendment, Mr. Michael Chung suggested mandating external auditing by enterprises. I cannot agree. Now, we need to enact laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing, but we need to allow enterprises a reasonable period to adapt to the to such a regulation. So instead, in the interim, the government should promote more certification services. If we then take the across-the-board approach and mandate businesses to conduct external or independent audits, that will add substantially to the cost of businesses, especially for SMEs, and so that may not be beneficial. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Lam. President, I thank Mr. Ronick Chan for moving this motion on enacting dedicated laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. I thank the other two members for their amendments too. Now, we are going for sustainable development as a global trend, and many countries have now set targets for carbon neutrality. Green and low carbon development is the trend, and many businesses are trying to embrace that trend. But then we have seen many cases of greenwashing. Both listed companies and SMEs have gone for greenwashing. Perhaps they're under pressure, so that's why they engage in different degrees of greenwashing. For example, there are multinational companies that keep using low carbon and green terms in their annual report, but then actually in terms of the supply chain, there is still heavy reliance on fossil fuel. So there are companies that brand themselves as carbon neutral, and but the EU has actually passed a law on to go against greenwashing. It will come into effect soonest in 2026. So this is an important direction for combating greenwashing. We can't just rely on guidelines from the Hong Kong Exchange to stop greenwashing. Now, there are no legal definitions for greenwashing. If you look at the annual reports of listed companies here, in some of the reports, there is little information on the ESG section. They have carbon neutrality. They say they set the carbon neutrality target, but there is no timetable. And there's a survey that finds that the disclosure standards of listed companies on ESG are far from desirable. And then large listed companies are, doing this, and you would imagine it's even more difficult for SMEs to go for carbon neutrality. EU has semi-mandatory system. The EU Council said that there would be will be providing financial support to SMEs, and this is to enhance the participation of SMEs in sustainable development. EU has also published a directive for eligible SMEs. They would be able to lessen the burden through less stringent set of standards. And then USA is also taking measures to combat greenwashing. First, the naming of investment products. Second, on investment companies, funds, and consultants, there is a set of ESG rules. So we can see regulation of greenwashing is developing as a trend. Hong Kong needs to improve our laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. At the same time, we need to set internationally recognized standards to provide clear guidelines and standards for corporations. Now, some businesses focus on certifications system, and then ESG footprint is increasingly becoming one of the requirements in reports, and we need to step up our auditing standards. We need to build a database, and we need to put in place a certification system, and then we need to take various measures. Now, the country has actually set the direction for ESG footprint development, and Hong Kong is a leading international financial center, so we need to bring in a labeling system for ESG footprint, and then we could combat greenwashing and promote the sustainable development of the region. Now, we are a international center of green finance, so our standards must exceed the international standards. Before we go for mandatory disclosure reporting, we must first lay a solid foundation. I hope the government will improve the relevant laws and regulations as soon as possible, so we will have a governance standards, and then there will be a level playing field for businesses. And for businesses that are actually green, they will be recognized, and we could also contribute actively to the transformation of the country. Thank you. Ms. Carmen Can. Thank you. I thank Mr. Ronick Chen for moving the motion. So together, we could ask the government to enact laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. Climate change and sustainable development are important issues recently around the world. The presidency said at a meeting recently that we need to promote economic development. We need to go for full green transformation. This is the real focus. And then we need to provide the system for protection. EUs and other advanced economies have already put in place varying degrees of regulation. Now, green awareness is becoming becoming more and more important, but then there is still no rules on green claims and so on. So investors, consumers, and borrowers may be misled as a result. Now, there are already cases of public confidence crisis because of greenwashing. So that's why the government needs to take the issue seriously. I'd like to make 3 suggestions. First of all, we need to enhance need to enhance the synergy between green finance and so on. Now, so far we have issued over $190 billion of green bonds. We can see that there is rapid development in green bonds in the green economy. But then some believe that for funds raised from green bonds, they are almost all invested in government projects. There is no active market participation. I would propose the government expanding collaboration on green finance so government and corporations can learn from each other. I'm sure that will help to boost the green culture of corporations. And there is a there is the Green and Sustainable Finance Cross-Agency Steering Group. It is a good forum, and so the government needs to formulate a set of regulations across agencies, and so we have a system to consolidate Hong Kong's position as a center of green finance. Now, in May this year, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority published the Hong Kong taxonomy for sustainable finance. It covers various types of 12 economic activities. This is a good development. It will help to promote a common understanding of green activities and facilitate interoperability and so on. I hope in the next stage, Hong Kong will include more economic activities, including transition activities in the taxonomy. And then we need to build to establish carbon emission standards that are aligned with the national standards. And then we could have more trading of various items, and then we could contribute to the country's effort to achieve the relevant carbon targets. Now, there are, in some countries and places, they've already put in place regulation against greenwashing. But in Hong Kong, we do not have the dedicated laws for that purpose. We rely on the Trade Description Ordinance to regulate products or services with misleading claim. Now, we need to learn from the experience of other countries to come up with a regulatory regime. But then the experience in other places tell us the pace is important. At the beginning, we must not be too aggressive. For example, if we mandate businesses to disclose all relevant information, it may not be the best balance against market development. And on consumer protection, I suggest that the government should consider further regulation under the Trade Description Ordinance, and there should be education efforts to prevent consumers from believing in misleading advertisements. We need to enhance the awareness of consumers, so then there will be better regulation and monitoring. So I speak in support of the motion.
Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, President. The Chinese University of Hong Kong conducted a study, and they found out that under extreme fire that broke out in the forest that actually undermined the flow of information. Under such circumstances, some investor actually sold their shares to purchase stocks of ESG focused. When large corporations try to adopt greenwashing behavior in order to improve their image and reputation, they're actually trying to boost their sales volumes and performance. Ultimately, a lot of green discussions actually lost their meaning. Some UK companies promulgated a report listing out a lot of greenwashing behavior. Green shifting means the company shifting the green responsibilities onto the consumers. Green labeling means that the enterprises link green products or claiming that sustainability, but they are not, or the fact is actually misleading. For green rinsing, it means regularly changing ESG targets before they're actually achieved. All these claims involve false claims and misleading packaging that undermines consumers' decision and that also affect environmental protection. A lot of countries and cities in the world have promulgated regulation. In 2023 January, the EU promulgated the directives on green claim, asking Europe, UK, and companies that have their headquarters in EU announce their impact costs to the biodiversity, water, air, and other areas. The France also promulgated the climate resilience law in order to combat greenwashing. Japan, in 2022, promulgated a fund to, or a regulation to oversee ESG fund. In 2022, we established a green tech fund to oversee INT projects that are green. In 2021, SFC promulgated a notice on ESG fund to set out guidelines to regulate the information disclosures of the enterprises. The financial secretary said in the budget that we should develop into a green financial hub. We have to align ourselves with the international standard. I hope that the government will step up monitoring, including setting out green auditing standards for enterprises and also put in place penalty against false green claims to facilitate the healthy development of Hong Kong's green finance. I so submit, President. Thank you. Mr. Chan Kim-por. Thank you, President. People have become more and more aware of green issues. However, the companies and corporations are actually engaging in greenwashing behavior. They overstate the greenness of their products and services to attract consumers to choose their products and services. This is a kind of false, environmentally friendly behavior. I support the motion. I think that we should penalize and regulate greenwashing behavior so that our economy can grow healthily. There are a lot of examples of greenwashing. For example, some clothing and food companies claim that their products are natural and environmentally friendly without providing supporting evidence. Some restaurants claim that their plastic straws and cups are biodegradable to mislead consumers, but actually Hong Kong does not have the relevant facilities to degrade plastics. Some corporations claim that they attach importance to environment. They're just trying to improve their image and to appeal to consumers. The EU in 2024 promulgated an order to combat against corporations that make use of claims such as biodegradable, environmentally friendly, green, and so on. Also, they cannot make use of the carbon credits to achieve carbon neutrality, and they cannot engage in carbon offsetting. We have to protect consumers' interest. Apart from European Union, other countries, including Canada, also implemented laws to combat greenwashing. UK, Korea also implemented such regulation. The US also reviewed their green guidelines so that the enforcement agencies have laws to rely on when they take enforcement action. We don't have a dedicated set of law to combat against greenwashing behavior. We rely on the Trade Descriptions Ordinance. Greenwashing behavior is prevalent. It goes from retail, finance, and other sectors. We have to define greenwashing and define what green claims are false. We have to define green products and green services so that we know what greenwashing behavior is. And we have to also put in place penalty, such as fine, so that violators pay a price. We have to be more prudent to make sure that environmental friendly measures actually contribute to the protection of the environment. There are a lot of regulations against greenwashing over the world, and we should learn from them. This is very important to the healthy development of the economy. This can minimize misleading claims and avoid confusion caused to the consumers. This will also provide a clear guidelines to enterprises so that they will not be caught by the law inadvertently. Also, we should step up publicity and education so that consumers can make more informed decisions. So submit, President. Mr. Tang Fei. President, I speak in support of Mr. Chan's original motion and the other members' amendment. I would like to thank Mr. Chan for moving the motion on enacting dedicated laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. This is a great green education to the public. If Mr. Chan didn't move the motion, I believe that a lot of logical members and members of the public don't even know what greenwashing behavior is. In 2018, there were green groups that raised this term greenwashing. So I would like to thank Mr. Chan for moving the motions. It in itself is a very good green education. I think that we should introduce this into the governance. Over a long time, a lot of governments in the world don't attach importance to environment. In 1952, London and UK, there was a carbon smog which caused the death of tens of thousands of people. The UK government didn't think that they have to work on it, and they thought that it was a natural phenomenon. In 1972, the UN put in place this or raised this green concept, and only until then was the environment being discussed. And I think that we have to introduce this greenness into the governance. When we have this green concept, there will be greenwashing behavior. Sometimes people act with good intent, but there are also always people who try to abuse such a concept. With green and environmentally friendly concept, then there's bound to be false advertising. In the production of products and provision of services, there are enterprises and corporates that overstate the green impact that they cause and the green benefits that they have. I think that this kind of behavior is misleading to consumers and also investors. I think that we should attach importance to this issue. I have a suggestion for the government. I recognize Mr. Chen's motion. We have to regulate such behavior. In 2023, we achieved great results. China, UK, and the European Union, Canada established anti-greenwashing legislations and regulations. We cannot lag behind. Greenness and environment are issues that all human beings share and should focus on. With heightened geopolitical tensions, it seems that there is still common ground for us to work on this issue of environment. I think that when we implement such policies, we can break the ideological barriers among different countries. And I see that there are mature anti-greenwashing regulations and legislation over the world. As an international metropolis under the one country, two systems principle, we should not lag behind. We have to step up public education and publicity. I so submit.
Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the motion moved by Mr. Ronald Chan enacting dedicated laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. Green and low-carbon development is the direction of the technological revolution and industrial transformation. Green economy has become the focus of global industrial competition. ESG performance is being concerned about by investors. Some enterprises mislead the public with greenwashing. From product safety and food safety, the Consumer Council conducted surveys and found that some products are claimed to be organic and natural, but then there are serious chemicals that affect the interests of the public, and that is misleading and deceiving. If these companies use false reports to seek funding from the government, that means the government is allowing these companies to pollute the environment. Hong Kong is an international finance center, so we need to make laws and regulations against greenwashing. This is very important. This will ensure market order and protect the health of citizens. This can also enhance our international image and our status. Globally, many countries and regions are leading. In 1992, the U.S. already issued the guidelines on marketing. SFRD came into force in 2012. It played a key role in ensuring ESG standards, and it is a milestone against greenwashing. ESG governance will also prevent greenwashing and regulate it. But the prerequisite is that we need to have a standard for disclosure. We even need to engage third parties to conduct auditing. Then we can monitor enterprises and make sure that they are complying with ESG standards and that they are complying with their green promises in order to eradicate greenwashing. But there are difficulties. Only companies that make disclosure voluntarily can be regulated. So in the long term, ESG governance will have a far-reaching impact on companies and the environment, but how can we regulate greenwashing? We need dedicated laws. These are not mutually exclusive. We need to have regard to the actual situation to take measures step by step. I understand that we need to have laws and regulations against greenwashing. Taking enforcement action may be quite difficult. From production, sales, marketing, there can be problems in different stages. On certification technologies, there needs to be advanced equipment. Apart from clear laws and regulations as well as implementation details, we also need to train enforcement personnel. This is a very long process, so the government should plan as early as possible. First of all, it should have a clear definition of greenwashing. It should require companies to give detailed evidence and figures to support their claims. If need be, an organization should be set up to audit and verify these green claims. For enterprises going listed in Hong Kong X, they will need to declare the volume of carbon emissions directly or indirectly emitted. This is an important step towards carbon neutrality. But I have a reservation. Right now, the IPO market is not buoyant. Companies need to spend extra resources on manpower, and they also need to collect data in order to finish the tasks. These challenges are not minor for small enterprises, so we need to enhance the competitiveness of Hong Kong. Members of the public in Hong Kong have limited understanding about greenwashing, so the administration should step up publicity and heighten public awareness about greenwashing. It should also encourage enterprises to market in an honest manner. I speak in support of the motion. Dr. Chung-hung. Thank you, President. In recent years, there are quite some greenwashing acts, that is false representations, they say that how great their green policies are. Some organizations even seek funding, and this will be misleading to the public. This will affect the level of trust of consumers and investors. This will affect the orderly development of the green market. These green sheen behavior indeed are very harmful. We need to make laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. First of all, we need to support dedicated laws and regulations against greenwashing. That is to build a better ecosystem in Hong Kong. There's no dedicated law and regulation to regulate greenwashing in Hong Kong. We need to rely on the existing measures in order to regulate greenwashing. One, we have the Trade Description Ordinance, TDO, preventing false and misleading representations from companies. And we also have the Securities Ordinance. There are guidelines on disclosure of information, but laws and regulations are quite wide in scope. There is no dedicated law or regulation against greenwashing, so the government needs to have dedicated laws to regulate greenwashing. There needs to be a clear definition of greenwashing as well as the penalties for greenwashing, so they can penalize companies who violate the laws. Hong Kong X has a climate disclosure guideline. It encourages companies to make disclosure voluntarily. In 2022, in this financial year, the disclosure rate jumped from 2021 at 20.96% to 50.3%. This is a good phenomenon, but at the same time, we cannot overlook other mandatory requirements. When we don't have mandatory requirements, that will affect the level of confidence. On the 1st of May, in a market, we already have disclosure requirements. 457 companies are required to make mandatory disclosure. In the face of the competition, Hong Kong X needs to enhance the disclosure requirements of companies. At the same time, it also needs to cautiously take into account the impact on the market. We need to have a system to mandate the disclosure of information. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, thank you, President. I speak in support of the motion on regulating greenwashing of Mr. Ronald Chen. We need to develop ourselves into a center for green finance. Hong Kong is a bridge between the mainland and the world. We need to be a good facilitator and play our function well. That is to drive the green finance development in the mainland. Green products and services have a burgeoning demand. Many enterprises want to attract investors and consumers. They make false or misleading information, advertisements, labels to exaggerate the functions of the products. These greenwashing behavior take different forms. Regulating greenwashing is the trend. The US, Europe, Canada, South Korea already made laws and regulations against greenwashing. That is to make companies fulfill their corporate social responsibilities. These regulate the green declarations and advertisements. They require companies to put forward evidence. On the 17th of January, the EU made ECGT. That is to replace the vague trade descriptions. Products need to go through the certification system of the EU in order to market themselves. The ASAS of Singapore issued guidelines on advertisements. In mainland China, there's no department to regulate greenwashing. For example, fake advertisement law, consumer protection law, unfair competition law, and so on. There's no regulation against counterfeit trademark either. Afterwards, companies are required to disclose the relevant information to ensure the accuracy of the information. Right now, there are new guidelines promulgated by the country to set penalties. The units or the companies are also required to disclose information that enhances the deterrence and is a regulation against greenwashing. Hong Kong does not have dedicated laws and regulations against greenwashing. We simply rely on CAP 362 Trade Descriptions Ordinance to combat products or services that have false or misleading representations. If we need to become a center for green finance, we need to have dedicated laws and regulations against greenwashing in order to effectively regulate greenwashing behavior and set penalties. That is to protect consumer interests and rights. That will also boost the confidence in Hong Kong as an international green finance market. I so submit. Thank you, President.
Ms. Eunice Yung. President, I speak in support of the motion moved by Mr. Ronald Chen in relation to greenwashing. Now, there is a strong green awareness. A low carbon and green economy is a major trend. So many populations are trying to redefine their own images and They want to promote themselves as green corporations, but unfortunately most of these efforts are superficial at best. And that's not actually in line with the actual situation. Such greenwashing would mislead consumers. It also undermines the credibility of corporations. At the same time, it will stand in way of real progress of green development. So that's why we need to enact laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. We need, because promoting environmental protection is the corporate responsibility. And then we're seeing much greenwashing. EU conducted a survey. It found that close to half of the corporations have exaggerated their undertakings on environmental protection. And then for some corporations, when there is extreme weather, they also go for greenwashing, trying to polish their own ESG image. And there will be much damage done. It will actually undermine the reputation of corporations, also undermines consumer confidence. In other places, many businesses face huge fines and even class action cases. Now, the U.S. also pointed out that Walmart breached the green guideline. It makes a false claim that their products are biodegradable. And then the Australian Consumer Protection Authority also fined a corporation heavily because the corporation made false claim that their products are 100% carbon neutral. It shows that we also need to take actions here in Hong Kong to combat greenwashing, because we need to maintain the reputation of the market. We need to protect consumers' interest. We must make sure that corporations are actually undertaking green transition. So that's why the government must learn from the advanced experience in other countries. We need to do work on several fronts. One, we need to define what greenwashing acts, and then we could set the boundaries for enforcement. And then two, we must require business to make disclosure so that they can't make false or exaggerating claims. Three, we need to have a common ESG disclosure standards. So this is also about enhancing transparency. Fourth, regulatory bodies must be given investigation powers. They could therefore require production of proof on green claims. And then five, there's need to have better monitoring and regulation so that the whole community will be involved in monitoring corporations. And six, we need to set the obligations in relation to greenwashing, and there must be specific fines and penalties. And then we need to work with enforcement bodies to crack down on greenwashing. Now, if we have regulations against greenwashing, there are both pros and cons, but then the pros outweigh the cons. And then we could encourage corporations to move faster towards green transition. But of course, for SMEs, there will be additional costs and it's a burden on them. But then in the long run, such regulations will help to promote healthy and sustainable development of industries. At the end, the entire community will benefit, and everyone can then share in the dividends of green development. So greenwashing is now considered a major harm, and it will stand in the way of sustainable development. Hong Kong must align itself with the international standards and practices, and so that we could have a system in place to regulate greenwashing. Thank you. Dr. So Chung-hung. Thank you, President. Most economies around the world are now moving towards carbon neutrality and are going for high-quality green transition. We need to build a green and sustainable financial market that will ensure there is sustainable development of our economy as a whole. Now, this is already the leading trend around the world. Immense business opportunities and financing demands are brought about as a result. And then such development actually promote the high quality development of economies and enrich the industries. But then there are some corporations that just make exaggerating and false claims on the carbon neutrality and so on. They use false advertisements and labels to try to package their own businesses and products. They just put on a green coat to mislead the public. And a classic example is that Volkswagen, the largest automaker in Europe, made a false claim about their battery hydrogen cell car. It was a major scandal around the world. The emission of their vehicles actually exceeded the reference standard substantially. And so that case has sparked much concern about greenwashing. So different countries are therefore formulating regulations to crack down on greenwashing. In Hong Kong, greenwashing has been around for a long time, but then it actually hasn't caught the attention of the public. And then the government does not have a complete set of regulations to regulate greenwashing. I thank Mr. Ronick Chan for moving this forward-looking motion. He asked for laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. I support his motion. I believe that as we promote the development of our economy and protecting consumers' interests, we need to strike a balance. This is to ensure there is social order, and it is also about market fairness. Now, if there is asymmetric market information, well, consumers are unable to tell whether certain advertisement promotion are true or not. So that's why we need to rely on the government to tackle the issue at source. There is a need to regulate the provision of services and products in relation to green claims. We can't just leave it to businesses to take their own initiative. We need to put in place a governance structure to enhance the transparency of green claims. And then investors in the market will be able to tell the true nature of green products and services. And if there are any false claims, the government needs to take action. It is squarely its duty. So it needs to work at least on two fronts and take timely action. Firstly, the government must take the lead. It must make reference to the successful experience overseas. It must formulate a professional and comprehensive set of rules and laws to regulate greenwashing. There must be risk management and work guidelines. There's a need to give support to the green industry, and then we need to have a system in place to combat greenwashing. Secondly, we need to develop Hong Kong into a center of green finance, so the government must improve the reference laws and systems as soon as possible. We should leverage on our advantage to develop Hong Kong into a center of green finance, and then we must not allow anyone to undermine the green market. We need to ensure a level playing field in the market. And then there must be a framework. We must further develop the green classification framework. There must be in place a comprehensive set of the disclosure rules. I so speak. Ms. Judy Chen. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the motion moved by Mr. Ronick Chen. I thank him for moving the motion on regulating greenwashing. Now, climate change is a challenge that we all face. That's why around the world, most places are actively promoting progress in environmental protection. Now, Hong Kong is an international financial center, so the ESG performance of corporations is a criterion for investors. as they make the investment. So we must guard against greenwashing. The government must put in place relevant laws and regulations to protect consumers' interest. And then corporations will fully fulfill their social corporate responsibility. But then currently we do not have a comprehensive system on ESG. There are also discrepancies in requirements. That's why the quality of disclosed information is affected. We need to make sure that disclosure is transparent and there is a comparability. So we could make reference to the EU directive, and then we could then put in place a set of standards for reporting. There must be also an auditing system in place. This is to verify the accuracy of disclosed information. That's the way to improve upon the whole disclosure regime. At the same time, there must be an ongoing monitoring system and also a system for reporting complaints, so the public may then make reports about false or misleading claims. So this will deter corporations from committing greenwashing. And if greenwashing is detected, then there must be penalties. This is to ensure the public credibility of the ESG reporting regime. All around the world, they face the same problem. That's why the Singaporean ASAS published certain guidelines last year. And for the first time, on the basis of that guidelines, rather, the ASAS took to task a company's misleading green claim on certain product. So the SAO government could also consider formulating a detailed set of guidelines on green claims, so businesses know what are the standards to follow. And then in the trade description ordinance, there should be provisions prohibiting businesses from making false, misleading, or exaggerating green claims. And then we could improve the system of consumer protection. In the last policy address, we can see that the government takes ESG rather seriously. So I hope the various departments and the public organizations will consider KPIs on ESG. That is a way to promote the development of ESG. The government and these organizations could set a good example, and then we could lead the community to implement ESG. This will enhance the awareness of sustainability in the community. That's why I think the government need to enact laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing, which should tackle the issue on all fronts. We must resolutely defend our reputation as an international financial center. We need to keep investors' confidence. We need to build a greener, better green future, and then there will be a fair development. Thank you.
Mr. Jimmy, thank you, President. I'm sure that you all remember this slogan, that Mr. Earth is sick. I asked the members, when did the government film this advertisement? 1992. It was some 32 years ago. Some 2 years ago, the government started filming advertisement to protect the environment. We're not talking about how we can protect environment, but how we should label green products and services. Over the recent years, the people have been more and more concerned about the environment. According to the EU's definition, green economy can promote the development of economy and the sense of happiness among people. To put it simply, green economy is very important, and it covers a wide scope of areas, including the concept that we hear very often recently, ESG. The mission is to regulate greenwashing. So what does greenwashing mean? Washing means covering up. when something is not green, we should not promote it as green. We do not promote such behavior. In Hong Kong, we don't have relevant legislation to combat greenwashing. All we have is trade description ordinance to prohibit misleading and over-exaggerating claim. If the claims made by the enterprises are false to a certain extent, then they will have violated the trade descriptions ordinance. So it means that we do have certain level of regulation, but the regulation is not targeted enough. So I think that we have to improve the framework. However, I don't think that we should mandate all companies, including listed companies, to engage independent auditors to audit their ESG and green claims. Then it means that banks, stores, newspaper stands will have to engage independent auditors to conduct auditing. I don't think that's reasonable. As we all know, business environment is dire these days. A lot of enterprises are just surviving, and they have a hard time in doing so. If we ask them to engage auditors to conduct auditing, it would be very difficult for them. Not a lot of enterprises engage in greenwashing behavior. Most enterprises uphold a high ethical standard. I think that we should instead promote green education and publicity so that consumers know what true environmental protection is. I so submit, President. Next, Dr. David Lam. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Chun-ying for moving the motion on enacting dedicated laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. I noticed that there was a word greenwashing in the motion. Green is the key word here, I think. So what does green means? When we say that we should use less packaging, we should use simple packaging. But actually, for that piece of paper, when it's manufactured, how much chemicals and energy is being used, I think that most people don't realize that. Actually, paper involves a number of chemicals. So if we don't use paper, we should perhaps switch to mobile phones instead. I think that young people switch their mobile phones every 2 to 3 years. For us to manufacture a mobile phone, it's not very environmentally friendly. When we dispose of it, it actually also causes harm to the environment. So is mobile phones more environmentally friendly than paper? When we ask people to make use of EV vehicles, actually electricity is also generated from fossil fuel or coal, and it also undermines the environment. Then of course, electricity is more environmentally friendly than fossil fuel. When we abandon the vehicles, it also impacts the environment. And when we dispose of it, it goes to the landfill. And it's not necessarily more environmentally friendly to use EVs. There is commercial interest and business interest involved in promoting greening or greenness. So who defines green? Do we rely on experts or ESG reports? It costs money to conduct such study by the experts. In universities, you either publish or perish. If you don't publish any studies, you have to give up your job as a professor. So where does this money come from? Does this money come from commercial sector, business sector, green groups? Of course, the study may be objective, but where the money comes from actually affects the objectiveness of the report. So how credible are these ESG reports? I'm not against the motion, but I think that this kind of green labeling and green advertising are actually trying to encourage our consumers to make use of green products and services, while it's not as effective in lowering greenhouse gases emission. We should use less air conditioners instead, and we should perhaps ride bicycles in order to cut carbon emission at source. so that we can have a green world. When we legislate, I think that we have to have sufficient objective scientific data for us to establish conditions for greenness. Otherwise, all efforts would go to waste and become a PR tool. Next, Mr. Lee Chen-kun. Thank you, President. More and more people are more concerned about the government, and they use their money to support green products and services. Green economy and green products have been very popular concepts, but some offenders take advantage of asymmetrical market information to label their products as green, which may not be the case or may not be true. They mislead consumers and overstate their claims. They exaggerate the benefits brought about by the products and services. I always say that solar energy may be environmentally friendly, but if we manufacture a solar-powered torch, is that effective? Of course, we all know that a solar-powered torch is meaningless, but actually a lot of companies make use of PR tactics to enhance their sales volumes just to make some claims. Just now, some members said that a famous U.S. car manufacturer make use of clean diesel cars in order to enter the U.S. market. They try to say that they are environmentally friendly and that their vehicles are energy efficient. However, when the consumers purchased the vehicles, it was eventually found out that this company relied on bogus softwares or to circumvent the regulation to mislead consumers into thinking that the energy used by the vehicles are clean. After the company has been discovered of their bogus claims, they said that it was done by mistake. It shows that in terms of environmental strategy implementation and ESG, this company is engaged in greenwashing. I thank Mr. Chun-ying for telling us what greenwashing behavior is. This means that the companies is trying to label their products and services as green in order to gain sales. They may not be deliberately misleading the consumers. They are using just an alternative sales tactics. A lot of companies told us that the utensils that they use make use of biodegradable plastics, but actually, a lot of reports show that the plastics utensils can only be degraded under extremely high temperature. So these utensils cannot be used in some places, but in Hong Kong. So I do question whether these utensils are actually truly biodegradable. So I support Mr. Chun-ying's original motion. We have to define greenwashing behavior. How do we combat such greenwashing behavior? Second, we have to step up publicity and education. We have to organize seminars to explain the impact caused by greenwashing to the environment. We have to also step up education. We should teach them about what green economy means, and we should teach them about green finance. I think that this is necessary. Also, we should establish regulatory framework to deter companies that mislead consumers and oversaturate their claims. Maybe we can create applications and platforms for consumers to launch inquiries. on greenwashing behavior. Maybe we can learn from some other countries. They have green labeling certification. We can perhaps also establish a certification authority. And more importantly, we should communicate with the sector to strike a balance between economic development and regulation so that our green industry can develop healthily. So submit.
Mr. Pt2. Thank you, President. I have reservations about the motion and the amendments. There are 7 reasons. Members mentioned it's difficult to define greenwashing. Many people do not know about the term greenwashing. We can say democracy sheen, mega events sheen, and so on. But do we really need to have regulations? I have reservations. Next, about the scope is very wide actually. Does it apply to services, products, ideas, structures, promotion, or whatnot? So how do we regulate democracy sheen, mega events sheen? It's very difficult to have regulation and laws. Mr. Tang Fei just now mentioned that this term is like a stranger to us. When we don't know this term well, how do we set laws and regulations? Sometimes we make laws and regulations only when something becomes very rampant. Fourthly, is it appropriate for Hong Kong to take this step too soon? Many Western countries overly promote the concept of greenwashing, so there's counterbalancing. We, Hong Kong, haven't reached this stage yet. There's no abuse. Greenwashing is not rampant in Hong Kong. So it's all too soon to have regulations and laws against greenwashing. For dedicated laws, the 2 main scopes are consumer protection and securities and investment. There are sufficient frameworks to regulate behaviors in this regard. We have the Trade Descriptions Ordinance. We also have the Securities and Futures Ordinance. Do we have sufficient framework and laws to regulate it? If not, how can we take more stringent enforcement actions? We have these 2 dedicated pieces of legislation, and that's sufficient. Just now, Mr. Jimmy Ng said that well. The economy is not doing well. We don't need to add insult to injury. President, you know horse racing well. The maximum weight restriction is 130 pounds. I mean, right now, the economy is not doing well. When we still need to impose more rules and regulations, then it will be more difficult for businesses to stay afloat. Just now, Dr. David Lam mentioned publicity is the way to go. It's very difficult to regulate, for example, democracy, mega events, and so on. I have been a barrister, solicitor, and a legislative council member for so long. I think legislation is the last resort. We shouldn't legislate just in order to have immediate results. We legislate because of rampant behavior in society. It should be the last resort. It should be the ultimate solution. We shouldn't resort to legislation just as we wish. But let's not forget, the legislative process should be slow enough for the community, for members of the public to clearly know what problems we have. We cannot solve the problems, so we legislate. The public should be allowed to take part in the legislative process. The media should also be allowed to take part in it. In Hong Kong, we need enough space for members of the public to conduct businesses, to pursue our own targets. We may be lagging behind, as people say, but there's also a benefit. We haven't yet met the mature state yet, so we should not rush to the legislation process. Does any member wish to speak? If not, Mr. Chun-ying, you may now speak on the amendments. Thank you, President. I'm grateful to Mr. Chung-hung and Dr. Hoey Simon Lee for moving the amendments. There are many types of green products, services in the market. There are green declarations, representations, and so on. These make it more difficult for consumers to tell whether these are correct representations. Dr. Hoey Simon Lee mentions we need to have a clear definition to regulate greenwashing. So this is in line with with my motion to have dedicated laws and regulations to regulate greenwashing. Mr. Chung-hung appeals to the administration to have dedicated laws, and it is not limited to imposing penalties, but also establishing a mechanism for consumers to claim compensation. I also speak in support of the amendment. It's very neutral. However, in the amendment, Mr. Chung-hung mentioned there should be strict auditing principles in environmental, social, and governance aspects, including but limited to mandating enterprises listed on the Hong Kong Exchange to regularly disclose the amount and intensity of greenhouse gas emissions directly and indirectly generated by their businesses, as well as the amount and intensity of these emissions generated by the enterprise's supply chains. This is actually in relation to listing rules, greenhouse gas emissions, and so on. It's well intended, but there is keen competition in the global capital market. These stringent regulations might immediately affect the appeal of the capital market of Hong Kong. The feasibility needs to be discussed, and we also need to take into account the features of different industries, to take into account the different adaptation periods, so we cannot implement this right now. So I appeal members to support my original motion and the amendment by Dr. Hoey Simon Lee.
Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. President, once again, I would like to thank Mr. Ronick Chan and the two members for moving the motion and the amendments. I would also like to thank the other 20 members who spoke in the debate. They put forward valuable views and suggestions on promoting green and sustainable development in Hong Kong, including the implementation of measures to prevent and combat greenwashing. Green and low-carbon development is an important aspect of high-quality development. Green economy and green finance are gradually becoming the focus of global industrial competition. According to statistics, global climate finance reached $1.3 trillion in 2021 to 22. It is estimated that the annual climate investment will reach $9 trillion by 2020 and $10 trillion by 2050. The huge demand for green finance in the market is also evident. Hong Kong has a well-established capital market in both depth and breadth. Hong Kong can provide a platform for green financing for enterprises at different stages of development. At the same time, it can channel international capital to sustainable development projects in the region. Hong Kong is a leading international financial center in Asia. In terms of our cross-boundary wealth management and so on, Hong Kong is leading. And so we are also developing into a leading international green finance center. In 2023, over $50 billion of green and sustainable bonds were issued in Hong Kong. In particular, the issuance of green and sustainable bonds in Hong Kong tops the Asian market by value and takes up 37% of the market share in Asia. As at the end of March this year, there were more than 220 environmental, social, and governance ESG funds approved by the Securities and Futures Commission (SFC), representing a year-on-year increase of 90%. The amount of assets under management exceeded 1,300 billion Hong Kong dollars, representing a year-on-year increase of 14%. We see different green products are being developed in Hong Kong. The first green ETF is issued in Hong Kong. The first batch of green bonds with government as the agent was also issued in Hong Kong. So we can see that in terms of green and sustainable finance, we are developing a market both in scale and in magnitude, and we are also taking the lead among places in Asia. Green awareness is gradually taking root among the public. The green and sustainable finance market in Hong Kong is also developing rigorously. Greenwashing by corporations will hold back green development as it misleads consumers, investors, and the public, and undermines their confidence in related green initiatives, products, and projects. To ensure the healthy and high-quality development of green finance and to enable investors to obtain accurate information for making investment decisions on green and sustainable projects and financial products, we and the financial regulators are committed to implementing a series of measures to prevent and combat greenwashing on various fronts. On sustainability disclosure, Hong Kong remains committed to aligning our requirements with international standards so that market participants can make sustainability disclosure of their business in accordance with a set of internationally accepted and transparent criteria, thereby boosting investor confidence. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we announced in March this year our vision and direction to develop a comprehensive sustainability ecosystem in Hong Kong. As the body tasked with the setting of sustainability disclosure standards of Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Institute of Certified Public Accountants will develop a set of sustainability reporting standards for Hong Kong that aligns with the ISSB standards along with the accompanying guidelines on application and implementation. That's the Hong Kong standards. Our aim is to roll out a roadmap within this year for suitably adopting the ISSB standards in Hong Kong. The roadmap will provide Hong Kong enterprises with a transparent and clear pathway for sustainability reporting and allow them sufficient time to be well prepared for the implementation of the Hong Kong standards. If Hong Kong companies are able to make proper sustainability disclosures in line with the relevant international standards, it will both boost investor confidence and help the market to prevent greenwashing. To enhance the sustainability reporting standards of listed companies, the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong Limited published in mid-April this year the conclusions to its consultation on the enhancement of climate-related disclosures under its ESG framework. It will be introducing the new climate disclosure requirements, The new climate requirements are developed based on the IFRS S2 climate-related disclosures. Implementation reliefs, including proportionality and scaling in measures, will be introduced to address the reporting challenges that some issuers may face. The amended listing rules will come into effect on the 1st of January 2025. The new climate requirements will promote the adoption of ISSB standards by listed companies in Hong Kong. The requirements are a part of the overall Hong Kong roadmap and will benefit the development of the local ESG ecosystem as a whole. In respect of funds, SFC requires fund managers to consider climate-related risks in their investment and risk management processes, make appropriate disclosures to meet the demand of investors for climate risk information, and to combat greenwashing. Specifically in 2021, SFC issued a circular to management companies of SFC authorized unit trusts and mutual funds (ESG funds) to provide guidance on enhanced disclosure for funds which consider ESG factors as a focus in their primary investment (ESG funds). New requirements are introduced on the disclosure of periodic assessments and reporting by ESG funds on how they incorporate ESG factors. On the green framework, the the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Hong Kong MA, has developed a green classification framework for adoption in the local market. A discussion paper was released in May 2023 to gather feedback from stakeholders on a prototype of the framework. Respondents welcomed the development of the classification framework as it could provide a clearer definition of green products, enhance interoperability, and help reduce greenwashing risks. Hong Kong MA published formally the Hong Kong Taxonomy for Sustainable Finance in May this year. The Hong Kong Taxonomy is aligned with the two mainstream standards of the mainland and the European Union. Currently, the taxonomy encompasses 12 economic activities under 4 sectors, namely power generation, transportation, construction, and sewage and waste management. For the next step, Hong Kong MA will expand the coverage of the taxonomy to include more sectors and activities, including transition activities. The taxonomy is a pivotal tool to raise awareness about green finance, promote common understanding on green activities, and facilitate green finance flows, thereby helping to prevent greenwashing. For investors, the discrepancy between the green program of a company and the actual situation may affect their investment decision. To guard against this, it is crucial to have certification service provided by a credible organization. To support the development of green finance in the region, the Hong Kong Quality Assurance Agency has made reference to a number of international and national standards. It launched the Green Finance Certification Scheme GFCS in 2018 to provide third-party certification service to green bond issuers and green loan borrowers with a view to enhancing the credibility and stakeholder confidence on green finance. In the same year, we launched a 3-year green bond grant scheme to subsidize eligible green bond issuers in obtaining certification under GFCS. In 2021, we launched a 3-year green and sustainable finance grant scheme to provide subsidy for eligible bond issuers and loan borrowers to cover a portion of their expenses on bond issuance and pre- and post-issuance external review services. This year, as at 2024 end of May, we have already issued granted subsidy to the amount of 900 billion Hong Kong dollars. This year, the program was extended for 3 years to 2027, and the scope of the subsidy was extended to cover transition bonds and loans, with a view to further encouraging the relevant industries in the region to make use of the transition financing platform of Hong Kong to reduce carbon emissions progressively. I would like to thank all members again for expressing their views on the motion today. By focusing on the relevant issues in our discussion, the government has come to learn about the different views, and that will help us to improve and develop the relevant measures in greater depth that will promote the development of green and sustainable finance in Hong Kong. I so speak. Thank you.
Under Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, President, I'd like to thank Mr. Ronald Chan for moving the motion, Mr. Look Chung-hung and Dr. Hoey Simon Lee for their amendments, and other members for their valuable views. I will respond to the motion and members' views from the perspective of consumer protection. Currently, in Hong Kong, there are various laws protecting consumers' rights and interests. Among others, the Trade Descriptions Ordinance Cap 362 prohibits traders from subjecting consumers to unfair trade practices, including false trade descriptions, misleading omissions, aggressive commercial practices, paid advertising, bait and switch, and wrongly accepting payment. The ordinance covers goods and services and is applicable to the trade practices of both physical and online traders. In accordance with the interpretation, Section 2 of the ordinance, trade description means an indication, direct or indirect, and by whatever means given with respect to the goods or services or any part thereof. In relation to goods, trade description includes the indication of methods of manufacture, production, processing or reconditioning, composition, compliance with a standard specified or recognized by any person, and so on. In relation to services, trade description includes the indication of fitness for purpose, strength, performance, effectiveness, benefits or risks, method and procedure by which, manner in which, and location at which the service is supplied or to be supplied, and so on. Depending on the actual circumstances, if a trade makes a factually false claim about the environmental friendliness of its product, including goods and services, and if the claim is false to a material degree, it may constitute a false trade description. If a trader applies a false trade description to any product in the course of trade or business, or supply or offer to supply any product to which a false trade description is applied, it may contravene offenses under Sections 7 and 7A of the Ordinance regarding false trade descriptions. Moreover, if a trader engages in relation to a consumer in a commercial practice that is a misleading omission, including the omission or hiding of material information, or provides material information in a manner that is unclear, unintelligible, ambiguous, or untimely, and as a result it causes or is likely to cause the average consumer to make a transactional decision that the consumer would not have made otherwise, the trader may contravene the offense under Section 13E of the Ordinance regarding misleading omissions. A trader who contravenes the offenses above is liable to imprisonment for 5 years and a fine of $500,000. The CNED Customs and Excise Department is the principal enforcement agency of the ordinance. The CNED adopts a three-pronged approach covering enforcement actions and compliance promotion and publicity and public education to combat unfair trade practices proactively. The CNED will take enforcement action decisively against a trader if it identifies unfair trade practices. We will continue to monitor closely the figures concerning complaints and reports and review the trend of unfair trade practices to formulate appropriate strategies in protecting consumers' rights and interests. President, I so submit.
Undersecretary for Environment and Ecology. President, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Chun-ying for moving the motion, Mr. Chung-hung and Dr. Hoey Simon Lee for moving the amendments, and other members for providing some very forward-looking and inspiring comments. In the following, I will speak on Environment and Ecology Bureau's efforts on the relevant subject. EEB and its subsidiary departments have been working with relevant policy bureaus, regulators, and stakeholders on strengthening information disclosure, providing professional assistance on climate change and carbon neutrality related knowledge for the healthy development of green and sustainable finance, as well as guarding against corporations that make misleading low carbon and environmental claim to misguide or even deceive investors and consumers. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority and the Securities and Futures Commission co-lead the Green and Sustainable Finance Cross-Agency Steering Group established in 2022. The steering group explores and coordinates policy on speeding up the development of green and sustainable finance as well as its monitoring. As a member of the steering group, the EEB has all along supported the development of green and sustainable finance, for example, by assisting in the formulation of standards for green financial products and providing information on climate change and environmental protection. All these help preventing greenwashing. Enhanced information disclosure would help us guard against greenwashing. The steering group set up a Green and Sustainable Financial Center, the Center in short. It is a multidisciplinary platform that coordinates financial regulators, relevant government departments, industry practitioners, and academic institutions on matters relating to training and policy making. The center has also established a database that keeps knowledge and information that supports the industry's transformation towards a more sustainable mode of development. In February 2024, the steering group and the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology rolled out a calculator for greenhouse gas emissions. The Environment and Ecology Bureau offered professional advice in the process to make sure that the calculator is in line with the basis of carbon emission calculation in Hong Kong. On standard setting, offering a clear and comprehensive set of standards on green financial products would help consumers and investors choose the products that are truly beneficial to the environment. In May 2024, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority promulgated the Hong Kong Taxonomy for Sustainable Finance to offer clearer definition for green finance so that the sector can make an informed decision while developing green and sustainable finance and lower the risk of greenwashing. While formulating the taxonomy, the Environment and Ecology Bureau offered professional advice on green economic activities in areas such as power generation, green transportation, and waste management to make sure that the standard adopted in the taxonomy aligned with that of environmental science to complement the latest development on environmental protection and carbon reduction technology. For example, the taxonomy confirms that hydrogen fuel cell vehicles is a form of low carbon transport and includes hydrogen fuel cell vehicles as an economic activity under the taxonomy. We will continue to assist the Hong Kong Monetary Authority to facilitate the development of Hong Kong taxonomy. Through the government's Sustainable Bond Program, the Hong Kong SAR government promotes the development of green and sustainable bond which funds the government's green and sustainable projects. The EEB has all along supported the administration in developing sustainable bond program by assisting in the formulation of green bond framework, offering professional advice on the definition of financing and refinancing of projects under eligible categories, and making sure that the green bond framework reflects the latest climate change undertaking and strategy of Hong Kong. We also supported the government's efforts in improving air quality, water quality, enhancing waste management, conserving biodiversity, promotion of green and energy saving and renewable energy, climate change adaptation, and so on. Some eligible projects under the framework under EEB and its subsidiary departments are the revamping of Tai Mo Shan storm detecting weather radar, Kai Tak district cooling system, integrated waste management facility, iPark 1. For each tranche of the government's bonds to be issued under the government green bond framework, we obtain a third-party advanced external review certificate, and we engage an independent and capable third party to certify the content of the green bond. President, members, we will continue to work with the relevant policy bureaus, regulators, and stakeholders so that Hong Kong can seize the opportunities and overcome the challenges on the road of green and low carbon transformation. Meanwhile, the government will raise people's awareness on environmental protection in order to drive green economy, green investment, demand for green products, and allow investors and consumers to make wise decisions. I so submit. Thank you, President.
I now call upon Mr. Lok Chung-hung to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose a question to you that Mr. Lok Chung-hung's motion be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. Mr. Ronald Chan claims a division. The bell will ring for 5 minutes. Will members now please proceed to vote? Mr. Pt2, do you wish to vote? Please check their votes. If there are no queries, voting shall now stop and the result will be displayed. Members returned by the election committees: 36 present, 4 favor, 15 against, 17 abstentions. Those returned by functional constituency and geographical constituency: 45 present, 8 in favor, 28 against, 8 abstentions. The question is not agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present. I declare the motion negative. Dr. Hoey Simon Lee, you may move your amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose a question to you that Dr. Hoey Simon Lee's amendment be passed. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Ronald Chan, you have 1 minute, 7 seconds to reply. Then the debate will come to a close. Thank you, President. I thank 22 members for their valuable views. A respectable practitioner told me that it should not be greenwashing. It should be white paint. I thank members for putting forth their valuable views, such as a definition of greenwashing, appropriate certification, strengthening disclosure requirements, third-party auditing, strengthening publicity, and so on. I also respect Mr. Paul Chair's views. The administration said that they attach a lot of importance to this issue, but I hope that they will put their importance into action. That's how we can promote green development. I hope members will support my motion. And I put the question to you that Mr. Ronald Chan's motion as amended by Dr. Hoey Simon Lee be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present. I declare the motion as amended passed.
Members' motion with no legislative effect. Mr. Martin Liao will move a motion on establishing sound industry and supply chains and related services.